Andrew Taake is being sentenced tomorrow for his role in January 6th. And what is the government using against him? They are using his call into the Freedom Corner protest. Specifically, they are using Stormtroopers' video in the reference. They are using a Gateway Pundit article against him. They are using him fighting in the jail against him. And they are using his past criminal history, which includes a charge of attempting to solicit a minor online, which he was out on bond for during January 6th itself. That case still has not been resolved. But let's begin with what they are wanting to sentence him with. 78 months of incarceration, 36 months of supervised release, $2,000 in restitution, $66,339 fine, a mandatory $100 assessment. The government's recommended sentence at the top of Taake's applicable sentencing guidelines range, which the government and the PSR submit, is 63 to 78 months. They are going for the top, and they have good reason to. Let's begin. So here, we have Taake called into the Cowboy Logic radio show. While on air, he falsely and strongly insinuated he was being charged with conduct he didn't do. Lastly, on December 25th, 2023, just 5 days after he pled guilty in this case, Taake called into the so-called Freedom Corner, a nightly vigil hosted outside the DC jail in honor of detained January 6 defendants. During the call, Taake told listeners that he had to admit to stuff that didn't happen. I went to go accept I'm not going to call it a deal, but I went to accept a plea, and I have to bite that bullet and kind of swallow that glass was a really tough thing, but this long into this fight, I don't think I'd still be here at this point. I thought I'd be moved along back in Texas or back home with family at this point. Back in 2021, I did not think I was ever going to admit to the stuff that didn't happen like I had the other day. And as you can see at the bottom, there is a Stormtrooper link. Glorious. Let's continue. So here we have some more. Taake's post-plea statements detailed above demonstrate that Taake does not accept responsibility for his actions and in fact denied he committed offense to which he pled guilty. Specifically, Taake in his December 25th, 2023 call to the Freedom Corner said that he never thought he was going to admit to stuff that didn't happen like he had to at his change of plea hearing. Given that Taake's claim that the stuff he admitted to the time of his guilty plea didn't happen, in other words, that he lied during his plea allocation, Taake has not accepted responsibility for his conduct on January 6, 2021, thus he should not receive the benefit of a reduced total offense level. They are using it against him, but there's more because there's a history here. As Taake said in his letter to the Gateway Pundit, he does not have any excruciatingly tough stories or major hardships from his childhood, like other defendants this court may have seen. Though he allegedly experienced violence at the hand of his brother while growing up, Taake's own admission, but when he turned to violence as a coping mechanism, he created more of his own problems than those he was running from. That pattern led to the Capitol on January 6, as evidenced by infraction reports from the Bureau of Prisons in the DC jail. The pattern continues. He has new statements. Though Taake scored a criminal category of 1, his adult criminal history and violent conduct while incarcerated pending resolution of this case is nevertheless significant. In May 2007, at age 18, Taake was arrested for possession of cocaine, a felony. While the case was pending, Taake was arrested for giving a false name to police due to an outstanding warrants for his arrest. In September 2007, Taake pleaded guilty to the possession charge and was given the chance to complete a diversion program over a 3-year probationary period. As part of his plea deal, the false identification charge was dismissed. A year later, October 2008, likely due to the assault conviction described, Taake's conviction was entered and he was sentenced to 6 years probation in 2014. Taake's probation was extended. His probationary term expired October 2015. In April 2008, at age 19, while on probation for possessing cocaine, Taake was convicted of intoxicated assault, a felony, while driving while intoxicated and crashing into another vehicle, causing serious bodily injury to his occupant. He was sentenced to a 6-year suspended sentence, which ran concurrently with his probationary term from his felony possession conviction. His probation conditions included 10 days in jail, community service, and inpatient treatment. March 2015. While on probation, Taake was convicted of speeding, driving without insurance, and driving without a valid license. May 2016. Taake was arrested for soliciting a minor online, a felony. According to the PSR, Taake initiated a conversation on a social media application with an undercover officer, posing as a 15-year-old girl. After sending multiple explicit messages to the UC, Taake proposed an in-person meeting. The UC agreed and sent Taake an address. Before meeting, Taake sent additional messages to the UC, including telling her that he could, quote, go to jail for what he was doing. Taake then went to the address the UC provided and was arrested. He was released on a $20,000 bond. His bond was revoked after his arrest and detainment in this case. The case remains pending. This case with the minor, he was on bond for that. During January 6th, that case is still ongoing. I want to be clear. He was on bond for soliciting a minor online, a felony, when he decided to go involve himself in January 6th. There's a reason they're going for a high sentence, but there's even more. While detained at USP Lewisburg, during the pendency and detention in this very case, Taake was found guilty of fighting with another inmate in March 2022 and August 2022, and of accepting money without authorization in December 2022. While detained at the DC jail, Taake was written up for fighting with another inmate on December 14, 2023, less than 2 weeks before his change of plea hearing. Though he claims self-defense, the jail officials reviewed the CCTV footage and issued him a disciplinary report. These prior charges, convictions, and infractions, the latest occurring just before his guilty plea in this case, demonstrate Taake's propensity for violence and contempt for the law both before and after the events of January 6th. The fact that Taake was on pre-trial release for a serious felony, the solicitation of a minor, when he came to the Capitol, is particularly concerning and telling, as is the fact that 3 loaded weapons, none of which were registered to Taake, were found in Taake's home upon his arrest. Now here we have this. Taake reported to the PSR writer that he was attacked by another inmate in August 2022, leading to significant loss of use of his dominant hand. It is unclear to the government whether Taake is referencing the same August 2022 incident in which he was found guilty of fighting with another inmate and punished accordingly. Moreover, neither the PSR writer nor the government has seen any evidence in support of Taake's claims that he has lost function of his dominant hand, or that the alleged injury was not properly handled by the jail. Taake's history and characteristics also conclude a complete lack of remorse and failure to genuinely and unreservedly accept responsibility for his actions. Not only did Taake refuse to accept that what he did on January 6th was wrong and wholly unjustified, but in detailed super days after the riot, Taake expressed a willingness to go back to DC and do it all again, this time at the inauguration. And in the intervening years since his arrest, nothing seems to have changed. Thus, Taake's history and characteristics weigh heavily in favor of a lengthy term of incarceration. There you go. Someone you've probably heard mentioned plenty of times on the corner. Do they know his whole history? I don't know. I don't know if they did. But this is the government's sentencing memorandum.